And there's this fun squishy ball, I'm gonna give you one for your sister too. There you go. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Awesome. That's part of it. I mean, budget's a close second.
That was great. We couldn't have done that without you. We had 20 groups go, which was a ton of kids, and they all went in and they read a book of their choosing and then held a discussion afterwards and or a fun coloring session. I didn't go. I wish I could have, but I heard it was a great time. So thank you for that, really. Other fun things, CA Ball is next Wednesday. That's a big fundraiser for the Special Olympics, so I'm really looking forward to that. And we have this new, I guess, challenge for this month. We have a kindness or positivity challenge for each month. And we are making clothespins during lunch periods in a program called Create and Connect. And we're gonna hand them out to students on a Friday at the end of the month. And they're gonna all like pin these messages to each other to lift each other up throughout the day. That's all I have, but thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Macy.
Just two quick things, I think. One is this coming Monday from 10:45 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. at the Academy is the Teen Job Fair. That it's the second year in a row they've done that, and they've invited any board members that want to stop by and check it out. It's a great event. In fact, last year I remember in the very first event, I went and walked around and asked a lot of the employers if they're finding people to work, and they were. They found a lot. They were able to hire a lot of our Academy students for areas to work around here in the summertime. So it's just a great event, and it's a great way to connect our school community with the community at large, different employment opportunities. So again, that's Monday, this coming Monday, a week from today, 10:45 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. If you're interested in going, let me know, and maybe I'll join you. And then the other thing is, Macy mentioned the readathon that happened today, and so I know a number of board members signed up to do it, and I had the honor of being able to do that as well. It was incredibly fun, and it's a little intimidating reading to an auditorium filled with students, but it was really great, and I didn't know if any board members wanted to kind of mention their experience if they were able to spend a little time there as well.
Jenny, did you go too?
No, go ahead.
It was so much fun. It was so much fun to see all of those faces and to get to share stories, and I got to hear Mrs. Frary read, and I got to hear Mrs. Grimm read, and I heard two books that I hadn't known before that were both wonderful and beautiful books. My only complaint is that I had not been told in advance that it was pajama day, and if I had known, I would have absolutely dressed differently when I went to read, because everybody looked so cozy and like they were having so much fun with their books, and it was just a privilege, and it was wonderful to be part of it.
So I got to read with fourth graders, and it was loads of fun. They were great. Fortunately, they had a book for me that I have at home, so I could read well. And then it was short, so we spent time talking about what kinds of genres they like to read, what kinds of books, and they came up with millions, and everybody was raising their hand, and they were so excited. And then it turns out it's also going to be Career Week, so then we talked about all of the career options they might be interested in, and everybody was going to be an astronaut and an athlete and maybe a chef or an author. There were many, many options out there, and everybody was excited and raising their hands, and they were fantastic. They all told me that they loved reading and they loved math. So I told them I'm going to recruit them as economists. I'm not sure I'm going to sell that to fourth graders, but it was great, and I really appreciated the invite to go. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. It was really just outstanding. Of course, you already know that that is my future home after I leave my real home. So I just scoped it out for when I move in, and the kids were wonderful, and Michelle and the other people who organized it did a terrific job of having books ready for us and a scanner, and the kids are always so primed for what to expect and how to behave. And the character lessons are just clear, so it's really incredibly moving experience, so thank you. I'll just stop now. Anything else? Okay, so we have a number of different resolutions. We're going to start with the transportation bond resolution for gas and diesel. I'll ask for motions, please. Julianne, and a second, Jenny. Questions or comments? So roll call, Deb, whenever you're ready, please.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Personali?
Yes.
Mr. Palomini?
Yes.
Ms. Tessendor?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Grimm?
Yes. And the next one is transportation gas and diesel proposition. I'll ask for motions, please. Milton, Julianne, questions or comments? Whenever you're ready, please, Deb.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Personali?
Yes.
Mr. Palomini?
Yes.
Ms. Tessendor?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Grimm?
Yes, sorry. I got caught, sorry. It's okay. And next one is the transportation bond resolution for electric buses. I'll ask for motions, please. Jenny, and second, Julianne. Questions or comments?
If you would, I would just like to mention with the electric bond and resolution, we did, Seth Clearman, you're out there somewhere, we secured a grant to offset some of the extra costs that these electric buses cost. We had a lot of internal conversation around, do we purchase a couple while their grant money is available, knowing that this is a requirement coming down in another year, and knowing that we have enough on the electric grid to charge these electric buses. It gives us an opportunity to purchase them, offset by the grant money, and learn before it becomes a rule or a law that we have to completely change our entire fleet for electric. And so it is a separate proposition. We want to be clear, we want to be very transparent with the community that these are two separate things, and when we do our budget presentations and go around the community, we'll make sure everybody fully understands that. But if this law goes into effect, we want to be prepared and know what we're doing with electric buses before our entire fleet changes over to electric. And so thank you, Seth, for all the time that you put in to try to secure these grants. As most people know, electric buses are more than twice the cost of diesel buses. Go ahead. Oh, am I stealing your thunder?
Yeah, you are, but
Oh.
I have nothing to say.
But by securing these grants, they bring it down much more close to a diesel bus range. And so I won't say much more about it because it sounds like Seth is going to talk about it. So I'm going to stop now.
So we have motions and roll call.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Personali?
Yes.
Mr. Palomini?
Yes.
Ms. Tessendor?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Grimm?
Yes, thank you. And the final one is the transportation electric proposition itself. I'll have for motions, please. Jenny, and second, Milton. Questions or comments? Whenever you're ready, please, Deb.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Personali?
Yes.
Mr. Palomini?
Yes.
Ms. Tessendor?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Grimm?
Yes. Thank you, and then we have the capital reserve fund, so I'll ask for motions on that, please. Beth, Jenny, first and second, questions or comments? Whenever you're ready, please.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Personali?
Yes.
Mr. Palomini?
Yes.
Ms. Tessendor?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Grimm?
Yes. Thank you, Deb. And that's all we know.
All right, good evening. This will be our first of hopefully 3 presentations on the budget. And as you're aware, this presentation is really on what has been requested by our buildings and departments, along with the changes that we're aware of at this point. And as we move along through the process, we narrow it down and give more detail on each and every meeting. So tonight we'll talk about, we'll discuss the guidelines in establishing the budget, the department heads and principals, directors, will each, present their slides and discuss, their budgets and some tax levy scenarios. So, in January, the board approved their goals, similar goals that we've used for the last several years. I'm not gonna read them all to you. But really, the goals are, in summary, maintaining strong academic and extracurricular programming. We've been lucky, over the last, 8-9 years to not reduce any programming or, academically or extracurricularly, even through some difficult, budget times. And then also annually evaluate the feedback that we receive from staff, and to prioritize, how we spend our resources. So staffing changes, here are the list of teachers or staff that have, notified us that they're gonna be retiring at year end. This, as a reminder, is from July 1, so some staff members on this list may already be retired and have been replaced. But this is the entire, staffing changes that we're aware of to this point, really highlighted by 16 teacher retirements. It's significant, much higher than what, we've had in previous years, what we're usually in that 10 to 10 range. So that's a very big area of change for us and loss of a lot of experience, in staff. There were several, positions requested as, through the budget process. None of these are currently in the budget, okay? So these were requested positions, and as we go through our staffing, meetings over the next, week or so, we've started some staffing meetings. We have, lunch, tomorrow and later this week. Really go through each of these positions and determine if any of these can go in the budget. The first one's a .5 assistant director of special programs, which would be working through, grades 3 through 5. And then the next 3 lines, the half-time occupational therapist, half-time speech teacher, and, 1 FTE's, psychologist, would be for our preschool evaluations. Currently, we're having difficulty completing the evaluations because there are not, the service is not available in the community. So we're having difficulty, being able to provide that service. So one of the concepts is creating that service ourselves. Part of that is we'd be able to bill back the county, who's financially responsible for that service, for that work. What we don't have yet is what would that offsetting revenue be? So if we created these 3 positions, and assuming we can fill those 3 positions, how much of that expense would be offset by revenue? So those are discussions we're still looking into and having. But that's one concept to, help, alleviate this, challenge in completing these preschool evaluations. Also at the, CACC, there was a .5 psychologist, requested and a .3 special education teacher. Again, none of those have been added to the budget at this time. So far, the staffing changes for reductions, we have 3 reductions due to attrition, and that's 3 elementary school teachers, and that's due to, decreased class sizes through the, K through 5. And now, I'd like to, have our building, principals and directors, come up and present their slides. Just want to, remind everybody, you're gonna see a slide with, last year's budget, current budget, and the change. And as you see in your packets, the amount of detail that they go into, and the amount of work that they have to put into this, along with their, grade level leaders, curriculum lead teachers, their staff, it's a lot of work to get to this single number that they're gonna discuss. So, really want to thank them for putting that, time and effort into it. I know it's not something that any of them got into their roles to say, hey, I want to have a budget. So, thank you to, everybody on this list, and then all the support that they have underneath them. And I think we'll start up right off with Rosa.
Hello. Hi. Okay, so, our budget reduced just a little bit, from last year, well, from this year to next year, and, that is really just, we bought a couple pieces of equipment in PE and science that we don't have to buy again next year, and the textbook fund went down a little bit. That's it. So I'll call it even Steven. Any questions?
Everyone, I also participated in the readathon today at the elementary school, leading, myself and the 6th group, who will be the our technology department had to make some pretty large purchases. They had some stockpiles, from COVID, actually, from projects that they didn't do, and then the second year, they still didn't do them. And they finally, so they weren't ordering things, and all of a sudden this year, we need to replace things. The Spiro robots that we have need to be replaced also, so that was a pretty big change. The other increase, we're putting in for main office, furniture. The last time that was redone was 20 years ago, so we're looking at having a more welcoming environment there. The third thing that increased was our science budget. There are brand new standards, curriculum coming up that we're gonna be starting with next year, particularly with our 8th grade, aerospace and some new topics, and that requires some equipment being purchased to be able to walk the kids through that. That's what we have.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm speaking tonight because Emily is losing her voice for the primary and elementary school. And it works out well because we do the budget together, and it's unfortunate that Marissa started with the decline and now At the primary elementary school, one of the biggest changes is conferences. So it's hard when we're preparing a budget this early in advance for next school year, and then teachers are starting to realize next school year when they're getting emails or promotions about conferences, and they say, oh, I'd like to go to that conference. Well, that would have been nice, but you needed to plan for that a year ago. And so we've talked to teachers before the budget process this year about putting in requests for conferences now, and so there's an increase in cost in conferences because teachers are being more vigilant about, there's a possibility I want to attend this conference, so I'm going to put the money in my budget now rather than waiting until next school year. And so there's about an $11,000 increase there for conferences at the primary and elementary school combined. Furniture and equipment is also a big increase at the primary and elementary school. We're being very conservative around what furniture we are replacing, but the furniture that we are purchasing is expensive, but it's very sturdy and good furniture. We've been working with Design Space Studio to purchase high quality furniture. So we've also worked with our custodians about taking a look at, if a kidney table, a teacher's telling us we need to replace this kidney table, does it need to be replaced? Can we fix it? But there's quite a bit of furniture that needs to be replaced. So, and then our instructional supplies is up about $3,000 as well. So those are the three biggest areas I think that we increased.
Thank you.
Oh, I should have clicked to
I
see
got it,
who's
I got
next. Sorry. It made sense going from building to building, but it is special programs. Okay, there you go.
Okay, so it's hard to follow the buildings when you come to special programs. So we have a significant increase. It really is related to our changing demographics and our increase in students with disabilities. So, just so everybody's aware, our numbers have been trending up. And particularly this year, what happened was we had 6 high-cost kids move into the district. And each of those, educational programs cost between $45,000 to $120,000. And so accounting for those unexpected, programs with the changing need is what's really driving the increase in our budget. Additionally, we do in-district, we do have increasing numbers of students with special needs, but it's really primarily those, kids with significant mental health, social emotional needs, behavioral needs, and really significant cognitive changes. But I feel like the good thing is that we are in the process of doing our special program CIE review, and we're very focused on our continuum of services and what we can do to help build programs to support our kids and keep them here in Canandaigua. But that also kind of speaks to the increased need for a part-time assistant director so that we can really tackle all of the systems and changes that we want to address. So that's it, that's a big view. Are there questions?
Is your budget a little different than the rest? A lot of yours is reimbursable through the state account, or refresh the state county? Through the state. Through the state, okay. Yeah. And a lot of that increase could be potentially reimbursed through aid?
Yes, I believe so, because even though our costs for our BOE programs are going up, I believe the aid comes down.
get a little bit in the weeds, John, for a student that's out of district place, the first $50,000 approximately is the district full cost. Any dollar above that, we're aided, right around the 65 to 70% range. So 50,000 is our cost, and then above that, we start receiving.
But the number that we see of 448,874 does not take into account the aid we're gonna get from the state?
Correct, that's just the appropriation expense side, yes.
Thank you, Tom.
Hey everyone, happy music in our schools month. We're presenting a little change here this evening. CIE earlier this school year approved 2 new courses at the Academy, one of which we're all super excited about. It's called Modern Band. There is a bit of a significant startup cost to that. I'm anticipating it to be a 1-year thing, in addition to the small other costs across the board. The other component I think that went up is somewhat congruent to what we just heard. We are doing our best to support students who may need help having a student. So there's little bits and pieces throughout the budget, grades 4 all the way up through 12, to help students who would perhaps not be able to afford an instrument on their own, in partnership with PTSA, maintain and supply the appropriate stuff for kids.
Questions for Greg?
Just real quick, you mentioned instruments for kids. Is there any local interest in trying to maybe offset some of those costs, where we could do some maybe just reach out to the community and see if there are people who are interested in supporting that?
Sure, yeah, that's a great question. We are so fortunate with our PTSA in Canada. They have a music appreciation fund there, and I actually just had a conversation with them about that this week. It almost always, well, it has always, for at least 20 years, put an instrument in the hands of students, and I also recognize one of the executives that take care of us with that. The thing that's interesting about that is, as kids get older, sometimes they need better instrument, and that's a trickier task sometimes. So some of the, I know in specific, there's 4 instruments in there this year that are in-media type stuff. In middle school, they would wipe out PTSD funds.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm asking, I mean, I might have an instrument that my child no longer plays, but I might.
Well, just like riding a bike, you can play that forever, so.
I've been trying, but I can't do it.
Yeah, we are also super fortunate. I mean, we must accept a dozen instruments as donations every single school year. People come out of the woodwork and just hand things over, as we've seen in the board minutes this year. It's been wild, so, yeah. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you, Greg.
Good evening, everyone. Slight increase in the Office of Instruction's budget this year. While there's some adjustments kind of across the board, the 2 main drivers of sort of increases are some of the things I've recently presented you about. Specifically, trying to anticipate some of the work that might be necessary as a result of the Blue Ribbon Commission. And the second component would be additional time for professional learning and curriculum work as a result of having Kristen Williamson, our new UPK 5 Director of Instruction. So we have someone who's going to help lead our teams through that, and when you have that support, there's a high level request for support with those activities. So as you can see, slight increase, but those are the 2 main drivers. Are there any questions?
Keep it up. They happened last year too.
Maybe skip, we need to circle back to that next round.
The athletics budget actually went down this year. The budget covers officials fees along with equipment for our 83 sports teams. We also cover tournament fees for things like wrestling, and cross country, and cheer competitions. And so why it went down is most of our uniforms were replaced in the last few years, and so that cycle has not needed to be replaced yet. So we have decreased costs there, along with a little bit of decrease in our conference fund, and also a decreased cost in our equipment for our strength and conditioning facilities. So overall, we're down about $25,000 in athletics. Any questions?
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you.
Don't push it, you can have it.
I tried to.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, alright, yes. Mine went up to trend. Two drivers for that, this year is that, most of our mobile communications now are, we kind of split them between two departments and we're rolling into my department, or the transportation department. So we can get some state aid on that. And then the other one is our routing program, the Transponder. I remember last year mentioning to you about the Stop Finder app that we were hoping to get it up and running. Well, it's been a long haul, and, Friday last week I sent out letters to two bus routes to do a test. And, this afternoon I sent out the, links for the parents. So we've gone live officially with those Stop Finder apps. That means all the turn-by-turns for our buses are actually working now. Every night, the IC is actually rolling into our program and updating children's information, which updates their routes automatically. And now those Stop Finder apps are going to be showing the parents right then and there, if their schedule has changed, what time the bus is gonna be there. They can set their phones to have a 15-minute ding of when the bus is gonna be there in real time, because it actually communicates with the bus, so they'll know exactly when that bus is pulling out. And hopefully that'll alleviate a lot of the concerns. And then eventually down the road, we can work into other things like attendance on the bus and knowing where your child is, especially for little ones. So that drove that. Everything else is pretty much, staying the same. Any questions?
Jim Mark's Pizza did that.
I know we did, I know you don't wanna know about, you might not wanna talk about the electric, so let's say really quickly, we did get $449,000 in grants. The buses total, again, we have two on the docket, it's $950,000 for the two. One's a 74 passenger, one's a 60 passenger wheelchair. We also, secured a $110,000 grant for the charging units and the infrastructure to put two charging units in, which will pretty much eat all that up for the charging units. So we're looking at $559,000 back from the state, which is pretty nice. I know that we're still gonna be putting in 480 or something, but to get us started and to get us to realize what these buses are capable of with our hills and what we have to do for distances, that's a good way to go to start us off.
When would you physically see those buses here?
Huh?
When, if you ordered them for this budget year, when would they arrive?
Probably September.
for service?
September.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, they're turning over much quicker, so they'd be ready to give them to us. So, yeah.
Thank you, Seth. Thank you, everybody, for presenting. I'll go back and speak about the IT technology budget, some of the changes that, Dan had submitted. New Infinite Campus add-ons, increase of about $37,000, increase in, the BOCES costs, about 3% year to year. Door access maintenance was moved from another budget line into his code for about $30,000. So those were the main drivers of the increase for, IT.
Matt, for the IC add-ons and the campus, that's part of the work, with Tracy Lindsay's retiring. I remember he did a lot of programming for us and data analysis. Infinite Campus has the ability to do that, but we've never really had to use it before. So now it's a matter of learning the components, training people, and making it a live feature. Matt, do you want to mention anything about it? I explained it well.
No, you explained it well.
Thanks, Matt.
All right, so looking back, this is a look back at the current year and prior year. The current levy is $52,580,000. You'll recall, the levy increase was 2.9%. We projected the tax rate last year at $15.53. With the increase in assessed values, within the community, the actual tax rate came in at $14.22, so significantly lower. And the actual tax rate the year before was $15.09, so, over 80 cents last year to year. An appropriate fund balance for the current budget, appropriate fund balance reserves is about $1.7 million. So sort of just give you a refresher of where we currently are within this budget, what we did last year, to prepare for this budget. So currently, based on the projections we have within the budget that we will continue looking at and refining, I've given 3 different scenarios. Our tax levy limit is 3.37%. And so I've given an example of, at this point, what a 2% levy increase would look like, a 3% levy increase, and a 3.37% levy increase, and what the amount of appropriated reserves and fund balance would be. So really around that 3% is about just a little over $2 million in appropriated reserves and fund balance. That would be the highest over the last 8 or 9 years. I think we'll bring that down over the next couple weeks before we present again. But just sort of give you an example of where we currently are as we work through this process. And then the tax rates, 1450 at 2%, 1470 at 3.37%, which would be the highest. Also, as we're talking about, part of our tax cap calculation, just so everybody's aware, includes the buses at those propositions. And so if a proposition were to be voted down at any time, that tax cap would have to be changed. It would decrease slightly. So while the 3.37% is assuming that all propositions pass, if one were not, then that 3.37 would come down to more of that 3.2 to 3.25 range. So just wanted to put that in everybody's mind that that's out there as well.
Questions from that?
Anybody reassessing this year?
Not that I'm aware of. I was just thinking about that as I was preparing this. The 4 largest have gone through reassessments over the last 2 years. So even if there were a reassessment in one of the smaller towns or municipalities, it wouldn't have a large effect on us.
And I know it's all pie in the sky, crystal ball talk, but 26, 27 school year.
Yeah.
Have you heard any ideas of what that's going to do?
So we're gonna have a few challenges. So really what's driving this right here is we were very, as of this point, with state aid, with the governor's budget. Last year, recall, we were looking at everybody at 0% or a small increase, and then a lot of the schools, more than half the schools in the state, with significant decreases. This year's budget cycle, that has changed from the governor, with the minimum's 2%, and then they've also updated the formula for some different census and poverty data. That really significantly helped Canandaigua. Our increase currently is projected to be over $1 million if the governor's budget were to pass. Even with that $1 million increase, and going out at 3%, our appropriate reserves and fund balance would have to increase. What's really causing that, the main driver of that, is benefits. Our health insurance is going up. For us, it's about 13% for our active health insurance. And so you're really looking at benefits eating up the entire state aid increase of over $1 million. The other, but in 26, 27, to get to that point is, I don't know what will happen with active health insurance, but we're really looking at trying 8 to 12% is really where we've been. And I would anticipate that again, so you're looking at close to $1 million, something in that range, and an annual increase. And the real concern we have is our retiree insurance for above 65, our Medicare insurance. We're currently in a consortium, and we have really low rates, and this will be our, next year will be our 5th year within that consortium getting these low rates. What's happened is the Medicare industry has completely changed, and Excel is, we're locked in at these rates. Excel is losing a lot of money on our consortium. About $7 million, $7 to $9 million a year that they're losing. Which when this consortium rates lock ends, we're gonna be responsible for catching back up. So we're looking right now, the last item I looked at, if we were to have to change it now, that would be a 230% increase those two combined would I'm assuming will be each year higher than our stated increase in tax levy increase each year. Just that one.
You only have a bad job once a year.
Yeah.
Talking about 1 month where it's not good to be in.
Any other questions from that? Thank you very much. Super clear, really well organized, all the materials we got were outstanding, and also we know there's an enormous amount of work that sits behind all those slides, so thank you everybody for all of that. Let's see, do you have anything else in the budget? Okay, so we have a consensus agenda and supplemental ask for motions, please. Beth, Jenny, questions or comments? All in favor?
I would like to vote no on the number, on the wood library portion of it. Yes,
Okay.
everything else, but no on the wood library request.
Gotcha, thank you. CIE, Beth and or Julianne, will you report out?
We're peasants tonight.
There you go.
Okay, as usual.
We had 3 different updates. The first from our social studies program review process. Doug Kerr talked about some of the activities that his department has been working through. They have about 6 draft recommendations. We're looking forward to hear their progress in June. Tanya referenced earlier the special program review process. We are midpoint there. We have a large amount of staff members participating. I think somewhere between 25 and 30 members of that crew. So it's very comprehensive. They're bringing lots of good feedback and ideas forward, and we're obviously looking forward to working through the process with them. The maybe not so fun or flattering update is our curriculum procedures manual. It's not fun to update a manual, but what I will say is Chelsea Northrup, who is a math teacher at the academy and also engaging in her administrative internship, has done a phenomenal job of leading that process, communicating, keeping us on track. We're certainly on track to have that manual updated by the end of the year. And then we had our professional learning update. We had, now that we're in March, our conference day. Of the 332 staff members that could participate on the conference day, all but 52 of them completed all of their hours prior to March 14th. So we're looking for 52 members to be in attendance on the 14th, while everybody else engaged and completed their professional learning in advance. So that is that. And just a little shameless plug and preview. In March, we are actually going to hold our CIE meeting at the CACC. That's because our students there are going to showcase their restaurant management course. They're going to give us a highlight about the course, talk to us about their progress, share some of the delights that they've been working on, while we look at summer curriculum review proposals. So I think it's kind of a nice give and take between something that maybe is a little bit dry, but something that's a bit more exciting. So, we're looking forward to that opportunity here for the kids.
That's awesome, thank you. There's nothing else, I'll ask for motions to adjourn. Jenny and Megan, all in favor. Good night, everybody, thank you.